picked out the two men he had seen with Rose Jeremy that night. This is significant because, as we now know, both Cubans were at Guy Bannister's office in New Orleans, and they both knew David Ferry and Clay Shaw. So now, according to this verified Jeremy story, we have a connection between New Orleans and Texas, just days prior to the murder of President Kennedy.
Tuesday, the 26th of November, the day after they buried Kennedy.
Gentlemen, I want you to know I'm not going to let Vietnam go like China did. I'm personally committed.
Lyndon Johnson signs National Security Memo 273, which essentially reverses Kennedy's new withdrawal policy and gives a green light to covert action against North Vietnam, which provoked the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
Just get me elected. I'll give you your damn war.
When Oliver Stone and Zachary Sklar wrote the script for the film JFK, they integrated into the film a large amount of material on Kennedy's attempt to withdraw from Vietnam during the period 1963 to 1965. Much of this material came through the mouth of Donald Sutherland, as he portrayed Mr. X, who Stone later said was modeled on former Air Force Colonel Fletcher Prouty. Prouty presented an abundance of material demonstrating that many months before the assassination, Kennedy had decided that the war was lost, that the intelligence community was deceiving him about what was really happening on the battlefield, and that the United States had to withdraw. The political problem was that Kennedy had to cloud that fact with reports that the war was going well enough to be turned over to the government of South Vietnam, and the complete withdrawal had to be after the 1964 election to ensure that he would not be attacked for losing Vietnam, which is what would have happened if an immediate and complete withdrawal would have taken place. Stone and Sklar were attacked by pundits from both the left and the right on this issue. The review board has now classified some new records on this issue, and all these records substantiate what Stone and Sklar had put into the film. In May of 1963, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara had a meeting in Hawaii with approximately 60 other members of the team involved in supervising the war in Vietnam. This was called the SecDef Conference. McNamara had several of these to be briefed by as many people as possible on the ground in Vietnam as to how that war was going. This was the last meeting. In the record of that meeting, Item 2, Comprehensive Plan, Republic of Vietnam, Subhead D, Plan to withdraw 1,000 U.S. military personnel from Republic of Vietnam by December of 1963. In a long memo labeled Top Secret, as another record, it reads, "The program currently in progress to train Vietnamese forces will be reviewed and accelerated as necessary to ensure that all essential functions visualized to be required for the projected operational environment, to include those now performed by U.S. military units and personnel, can be assumed properly by the Vietnamese by the end of calendar year 1965. All planning will be directed towards preparing Republic of Vietnam forces for the withdrawal of all U.S. Special Assistant units and personnel by the end of calendar year 1965. Now, what's interesting about this next document is that it's in December of 1963, December the 2nd. And this is, of course, just about 9 or 10 days after President Kennedy is dead. This concerns Mr. McNamara getting reports from the Joint Chiefs and from Major General Krulak on the situation in South Vietnam. It reads, "The Secretary also requested that he be informed at each Monday meeting as to what has been done during the previous week to advance action against North Vietnam. The Secretary indicated that he believed that there was an urgent need for the development of a plan to place increasing pressure on North Vietnam." So in other words, from the accelerated decrease in forces and the withdrawal under President Kennedy, in just a matter of over a week, Secretary of Defense McNamara is talking about more action against Vietnam. What is being done in the development of a plan to place pressure on North Vietnam? What these documents do to most readers is reinforce the thesis of JFK. In other words, that Kennedy's intent to withdraw from Vietnam was reversed after the assassination.
Why did Colonel Fink not dissect the tract of the bullet wounds?
Obvious tracheotomy.
Well, I heard
site.
Dr. Hume stating that...
That's enough. That's enough. It's duly noted.
One of the most important areas of inquiry by the review board was his investigation into the medical evidence in the Kennedy case. Chief Counsel Jeremy Gunn and military records analyst Douglas Horn took a special interest in this area, and they interviewed all three pathologists who performed the final autopsy on President Kennedy at Bethesda Medical Center in Washington. And they also interviewed some of the Dallas doctors who tried to save him immediately after the assassination. Even more interestingly, they also found some new witnesses who had not been talked to before. In August of 1998, the review board issued both a report on this investigation and thousands of supporting documents which substantiated their charge that the record was incomplete, and as incompleteness, this fragmentary record had caused deep suspicion about the Kennedy case. Some of the remarkable facts dug up by the review board are these. Chief Autopsist James Humes not only burned the first draft of his autopsy report, but he also burned the notes on which he based that report. A witness named Leonard Saslaw told the board that he overheard Dr. Pierre Fink complaining a couple of days after the autopsy that his notes from the autopsy had also disappeared. In Hume's deposition with Jeremy Gunn, he admitted that the fresh brain had not been weighed. Humes also stated that the brain had been cut into sections to trace a bullet path, yet there are no pictures of this in existence. When shown pictures of the rear of Kennedy's head, Humes had trouble pointing out the fatal wound to the skull. On the x-rays of Kennedy's skull, there is a large fragment on the back of the head towards the top. It measures 6.5 millimeters, the exact size of the ammunition used in the alleged weapon. When Humes saw this fragment, he said that he did not recall seeing it the night of the autopsy, even though it is the largest fragment present on the x-ray. Most revealingly, Humes also stated that he had a difficult time connecting his supposed entry site for the bullet, which is low in the back of the skull, with the metallic trail of bullet particles, which are high in the front of the skull. He was at a complete loss to explain how they connected. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of this medical report is the part of the House Select Committee Assassinations report that talks about the gaping hole